All right, guys. So we have some Democrat infighting to talk about today, as it seems that Joe Biden, through fellow Democratic colleagues, Senator Joe Manchin from West Virginia and Senator Kyrsten Sinema from Arizona, under the bus during his speech at Tulsa when talking about why he isn't getting as much done as he wants to get done. Take a look.
And June should be a month of action on Capitol Hill. I hear all the folks on TV saying, why doesn't Biden get this done? Well, because Biden only has a majority of effectively 4 votes in the House and a tie in the Senate, with 2 members of the Senate who vote more with my Republican friends. But we're not giving up.
All right, guys. So as you can see there, in my opinion, when I first saw this, I said, okay, Biden is straight up throwing Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin under the bus as an excuse to progressives on why he hasn't done as much as he say he would do. And this is interesting because up until this point, we haven't really seen the Biden administration go after them. Okay, the main people that have went after them are the progressives, people on the left. And the ironic part about it is that they're going after them not because Biden's actually trying to do anything progressive, right? According to their definition of progressive. And I'm going to get more into that a little bit later on in the video, but more because they're not passing Biden's agenda. Biden basically just flat out lies. He says that they vote more Republicans than Democrats, when the reality is actually that Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema have actually voted in line with Joe Biden 100% of the time, more than some key progressives in Congress. And let's listen to Jen Psaki kind of walk back Biden's comments about Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema today at the White House press conference.
Than Democrats, but Republica actually found that they've so far voted with Biden 100% of the time on major votes. And so can you explain where those comments came from and why he felt the need to call out members of his own party?
Well, I would say first that if Senator Manchin and Senator Sinema were standing with me here today, they're always welcome, they would call out their own independent streaks. And that's something that I think they're both proud of. They both vote for and represent the people in the states and all the people who elected them to represent them in the Senate. If you look at what the president said, the big tell here is I hear all the folks on TV saying, now as a former TV pundit myself, I can tell you that sometimes these conversations can be oversimplified. TV isn't always made for complex conversations about policymaking. We all know that, right? And what the president was simply conveying is that his threshold, his litmus test is not to see eye to eye on every single detail of every issue. And he doesn't with Senator Sinema and Senator Manchin. And he doesn't with Senator Capito, who's coming here later this afternoon. He believes there's an opportunity to work together, to make progress, to find areas of common ground, even if you have areas of disagreement. And he also believes that sometimes, because there are 3 entities, 3 branches of government, something he knows well, having served 36 years in the Senate, that sometimes it's not a straight line to victory or success, that sometimes it takes more time, and he's open to many paths forward. So I don't think he was intending to convey anything other than a little bit of commentary on TV punditry.
Well, it did seem to suggest that he is in favor of filibuster reform and wants to see that move. So why hasn't he been more prominent in calling for that? And is he pressuring Manchin and Sinema to move on that issue privately?
I wouldn't say that his comments yesterday were conveying a new position on his view on the filibuster. His view on the filibuster continues to be that there should be a path forward for Democrats and Republicans to make voting easier, to move forward on progress for the American people. That position hasn't changed, and he was not intending to convey something different.
Okay, so she's walking back these comments. Obviously, she's trying to say, well, Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, they have the right to, think independently and represent their states. And this is not a change from Joe Biden in regards to his position on the filibuster. And this is, again, an interesting situation for the Biden administration because he's trying to appeal to progressives to try to say he's progressive. Okay, that's what he wants to appear to be as a progressive, but he also is trying to appear moderate. Okay, he's trying to sell himself as a moderate to those on the right. And Biden trying to do this, I think he's really got himself stuck between a rock and a hard place. And the reason why is because the political spectrum really in the United States is so broad. Okay, I mean, even at times I have a hard time figuring out what the definition of progressive is, or what's definition of conservative is, or what is an actual moderate. Because Republicans and people on the right will swear up and down that the Democrats are socialist. Okay, they'll swear up and down they're socialist. But the progressives will swear up and down that the Democrats are actually Republicans, that they are conservatives, they are Republican light. And the Democrats will say that the Republicans are bad, and the Republicans will say well, the Democrats are bad. So when you're trying to examine politics, it's really hard to figure out what actually is progressive versus what actually is just a standard liberal agenda. And I think that Biden really sees himself as having a standard liberal agenda. I don't think he really sees himself as a progressive, but at the same time, I think he's trying to play both sides. Instead of just saying, you know what, I'm a standard liberal, I'm not really progressive, I'm not really moderate, I'm just a standard Democrat. And that's really what Biden should say, right? That's what he should do. I think that in reality, he's more in line with Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema than what he would like to let off to the progressive base. Because again, they've voted in line with Biden 100% of the time. Okay? They really have. So if Biden actually puts a bill on the floor to vote that's sponsored by them that Biden wants, history suggests that they're going to vote for it. And when Biden had a chance to get the $15 hour minimum wage, which is a progressive priority, he decided not to do it because he could have made them actually vote on it during reconciliation. Kamala could have just overturned the Senate parliamentarian and be like, nope, this is going in there. And he could have made them vote on it. And they probably would have voted yes. However, Biden didn't actually take any of the blame for not actually pushing for that policy. The people that took the blame for it was Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin. That's the people who took the blame for it. So I think Biden is kind of seeing those two as his kind of fall guys for not passing a more progressive agenda. And that doesn't necessarily even hurt them in their own states because their states, West Virginia, Arizona, are basically swing states. And I think that Biden is really feeling the pressure from the left now because a lot of people are frustrated with the negotiations between the Biden administration and Republicans because, I mean, the Republicans aren't really trying to meet Biden halfway. Okay, well, they are to a certain extent, but they're not really trying to get close, okay, to what Biden wants. I think Biden started at 1.2 trillion, and then I think he negotiated down about 1.7 trillion. Republicans haven't even went over $1 trillion. Okay, so negotiations between Republicans and Democrats really aren't even close at this point. Okay, and a lot of progressives are like, okay, Biden, you know that the Republicans aren't gonna try to spend that much money at all. And remember, the progressives, some of them want to spend $10 trillion on infrastructure. They want to spend $10 trillion on this infrastructure package. So Republicans not really trying to play ball when Biden started at 2.1 trillion. A lot of them are like, why are we even negotiating with Republicans in the first place? Because they have reconciliation, or they can repeal the filibuster, right? Those are their two options. Biden's not really trying to push for reconciliation, and he's also not trying to repeal the filibuster. So a lot of those progressives and a lot of people in the liberal media are like, wait, hold on now, Biden. Hold on now. Do you really want to pass your agenda? Because it seems like he's not fighting for his agenda as hard as he should be if he actually really wanted it. And a part of that would be calling out Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, who are being seen as roadblocks against repealing the filibuster. So now I think Biden's really feeling that heat now, and he's saying, you know what, I got to call them out on this, even though I don't really want to repeal the filibuster. Remember, that's what he says, right? He says he doesn't want to repeal it. He says, I don't really want to repeal the filibuster, but he's going to call them out. And then, the next day, the press secretary, Jen Psaki, she walks that back. Okay, so there's a lot of interesting politics going on here, between the Biden administration and the Democrats, because, again, Biden's trying to appear to be a progressive, And I think that there is definitely some progressive portions of his agenda, but it remains to be seen. Why is it that Biden has not really taken the initiative to say, you know what? We got the Voting Rights Act. We got making DC a state. We got removing the filibuster. Why don't we just go ahead and remove the filibuster? And in that way, if we remove the filibuster, we can make DC a state. We can pass the Voting Rights Act. We can do all this stuff without the Republicans and basically get whatever we want. And essentially, if they make DC a state, I mean, that's 2 automatic seats for the Democrats. It's game over at that point. Okay? So, I think the progressives are really, really upset with Biden that he's not trying to go for the kill shot on the Republicans. And I think that Biden, being a seasoned politician, and this is not me necessarily really trying to give him a ton of credit, but I'm just saying, him being a traditionally more conservative Democrat, I think he realizes the dangers of trying to get rid of the filibuster or trying to grab that much power at one time without having a solid majority, which means a solid backing from the American people from a congressional perspective. And I think that that's why I said if the Democrats win in 2022, they win more seats in the House and the Senate, I would expect then at that point, you're really going to see more of the progressive legislation come out, especially if somebody like Kamala Harris is waiting in the reins to take over for Biden. I think that's when you'll really start to see them push to go left on a lot of different issues. And I think they're waiting to 2022 to do that as confirmation that we can go forward with this agenda. But I think as of right now, Biden doesn't really want to do that because, this type of power grab could really turn against them come 2022 if a ton of Republicans show out and backlash against their agenda. So, like I said, man, from a politics perspective, this is fascinating stuff going on with the Biden administration. And it remains to be seen whether or not Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema will actually fold. Okay, like where does this actually lead to? Because in regards to the infrastructure bill, right now the only option is reconciliation. Will it pressure Joe Manchin to let go of some of his demands? Okay, when it comes to lowering the corporate tax rate to 25% and not spending as much, will it pressure Kyrsten Sinema to get on board with certain progressive priorities like $15 minimum wage or repealing the filibuster? I don't know that as well either. Okay, so it remains to be seen exactly what is Biden trying to pressure them to do. What is he really trying to pressure them to do? I think that's the real question here. Or is he just using them as a scapegoat to say, well, they're the reason why I didn't get this, and all the things that the progressives want. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.